Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday,
Sunday.
August 7th,
I think. Yeah.
year of our Lord 2022.
Oh my God, you went there. Oh. Am I supposed to call you my lord now? Because that was.
I will lord it over you for the rest of your miserable
Lordy. Oh.
Anyway, good morning. Welcome to Toilet Talk, where shit gets real. Toilet Talk with Dina Lynn. The lovely and effable, but sometimes uneffable Dina Lynn.
Well, we'll just go with it. I like to be all things.
Right. Anyway, welcome to Toilet Talk this morning. I am having a bit of a day where words are not coming, so we're hoping that a little bit of Red Bull action will help me get my brain vibrations in a row. I mean, if you've ever tried to put ducks in a row, you know how hard it is to put brain waves in order. So anyway, we were having a wonderful discussion this morning, pre-discussion.
You should have recorded the pre-talk. The pre-talk is always excellent when we talk about what we want to talk about. And it was rousing. It was excellent. And you missed it. I'm sorry. So sorry.
So I guess we'll start recording earlier and they'll just become longer and much less organized. Anyway, we were talking about self-care and self-love.
Self-love.
I've personally had a pretty big battle with self-care these, last 50 or at least, 45 years, something like that. I'm 51 now, and who knows when the issues actually started when I was a child, but self-care has been self-care and self-love have been very, what's the right word? See, there it is.
Elusive.
That's happening. Elusive, or at least unplanned, sporadic for me. And so it's something that I've decided to take on a much more intentional mindset about developing or starting to develop self-care and self-love habits, so that instead of discovering that I've gone too far and I'm collapsing because I haven't taken care of myself, now it's becoming an issue of us like, okay, I need to set some stuff down on the calendar, and these are going to be like dedicated weeks every year, dedicated weekends every year that I just take care of me. It is specifically and only for me, and nobody gets to intrude on those times. Obviously, there will always be some amount of exception involved, but anyway, so that's kind of where one of the places where I was starting from on this discussion, and I don't know where Dina wanted to start from.
Well, okay, so this past week in my life, once a year for the past 7 years, I have done a children's art camp where up to 30 kids at a time come to me, and I teach them 2 paintings a day for 5 days in a row. And it's wonderful, and it's challenging because some of the kids want to be there, some of them don't. And this was the week I did that. And it was exceptionally challenging this year for lots of reasons. Due to COVID, for the second year in a row, it was outdoors, so we're contending with heat and wind and distractions because we were in a park. It was just ongoing, demanding, and I found myself getting more and more depleted as the week went on, to the point that by Friday night, day 5, looking at the next day, which would have been yesterday, there was a significant event I had committed to that involved another person, and people had registered for it. It involved art and other things, and long distance traveling and high gas prices and all of those factors. But bottom line, my body was saying to me, not using English, just sensations, cancel, don't go. And I was up against my own work ethic, my not wanting to disappoint somebody else, not wanting to disappoint the children who had registered, all of that, lots of internal conflict, and it brought up a whole lot of triggers in me that sounded like, if you disappoint people, you are worthless. And you dare not let other people down. I don't care what it takes. You sacrifice everything. You do what you said you would do. All kinds of messages within me as a human being, as someone who runs a business, etc. And the person with whom I was working also gave me the message of, oh, you're really letting me down, and I'm going to suffer, and how dare you, that kind of thing. And I was not in great shape when I went to bed night before last with this conflict. But my body kept saying, no, don't go. Yesterday morning when I got up and I ran to this toilet right here, I discovered there was blood in my urine. So I went to the clinic where it was discovered I not only have a UTI, sorry, I don't know anything about TMI. I'm just going to say it. I had a UTI, very common among women, less common among men.
Hold on just a second. So just in case you're not familiar with the acronyms that she just used, UTI is uterine or
urinary tract
infection, and TMI is too much information. Just so you're aware.
yeah. TMI. In my reality, TMI is a guy named Tim who is dyslexic, so he gets his letters jumbled up, and he types in all caps, and he has his shorts perpetually in a wad. He gets upset about everything. So TMI does not rule my life. I am not afraid of revealing human things.
Nor does Tim. Tim does not rule her life either.
No. And there's a story there, but we'll skip that one. So there I was in the clinic hearing from the doctor that not only did I have, as I suspected, a UTI, but it had traveled from the urinary tract into my bladder, which was bleeding. Not a good thing. Blood in the urine is never a good thing. And it had spread into my kidneys. Fortunately, we caught it in time, but had I pushed through yesterday and shown up for that event and just kept plowing along, which is part of what I've been trained and conditioned to do. Many of us can probably relate to that whole Protestant work ethic where your value is in your doing and you're showing up. If we don't listen to our body, meaning we don't get enough rest, enough fluid, enough good food, enough exercise, enough play, all of the things that we need, our body will show us what's what. And anyway, the lesson learned yesterday was listen to the body. So I'm on all the drugs now. I'm good now. And within a week, I'll be back to normal. But for me, self-love looked like disappointing myself and others. But self-love demanded that I do what I did. So yeah, what gets in the way of you having self-love, Robin? Tell the people.
Well, I think there's a lot of things that are self-love that I do that are unconscious. I will take breaks. I will allow myself to be lazy. I'll collapse. I'll decide, nope, screw it. I'm not going to do this. I just need to rest, whatever it is. Unfortunately, it's not intentional. It's not setting the intention aside and saying, okay, I'm going to take care of myself. It's allowing my body to dictate the fact that I haven't been taking care of myself.
Right. It's a wake-up call.
So there's a difference between being intentional about it and being
proactive about it.
Well, being intentional and proactive about it, and being left to the devices of body, mind, subconscious, which demands that I pay attention. Lately what I've been noticing is that I haven't been, and I never really have, intentionally set out and said, okay, here are the ways in which I'm going to take care of myself. I only started really learning about healthy boundaries here several years ago. I didn't even know what a boundary was or what it meant or what the difference between a boundary and a rule was. Rules are about you, boundaries are about me. And so my commitment to myself has been that I want to live a more healthy life and a more peaceful life. And to do that, one of the things that I know that I have to do is to put myself in a position where I am actually proactively taking care of myself, my body, my mind, my emotional body, my spiritual body, and give myself the opportunity to regularly get back out in nature where there's peace and quiet and a sense of connection to something larger than I am. And I don't mean a connection to a society larger than I am, because, There's nothing wrong with what we've got in parts of our society, but what we have is really, really unhealthy. Um, and it doesn't suit me or the lifestyle that I want to create at this stage. So it really is about asking myself what I want and what I need, and then creating my schedule around me rather than creating my schedule around everybody else and everything else. Because given the opportunity, having been as a recovering people pleaser, my go-to pattern is to take care of everybody else, because the assumption is that if I do for others what I want done for me, then they'll do for me.
Transactionality.
Transactionality. Yeah. What Dina said. What she said.
Yeah. There's an interesting nuance between transactionality. If I do, then you will do, right? So we're paying for. Transactions are fine when they come to things like exchange of money for service, that sort of thing. That's a transaction. But shifting from that to reciprocality, where we are more organically giving to each other out of a natural impulse rather than a sense of obligation, is a more peaceful and fulfilling way of interacting and living. Self-love can look all different kinds of ways. I mean, people talk about it being, indulging yourself in this, that, or the other. And indulgences are fine. I think they're an important part of what we need. But for me, it's more like creating a life that I don't need to escape from. And that includes time off. That includes rest. That includes playing. Playing is important, letting ourselves enjoy our desires, fulfilling our desires. We live in a culture that tells us we have all of these have-tos, and we can't do what we want to until we've satisfied the have-tos. But there's no end to the have-tos. This culture acts like a machine that we keep feeding. We're sacrificing our well-being, our peace of mind, our desires, our wants. There are spiritual circles that tell us desires and wants are offensive. They're unspiritual. And no, bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Our desires are the seeds of what our souls want to manifest for us. And when we give thanks for those things that we want and make room for them, they start to flourish. And there are lots of times lately I have found myself wanting, in present tense, to bless future me by taking care of something I don't necessarily want to do, something I would otherwise procrastinate or put off. And then what I'm doing is I'm adding to the stress of future me when future me goes, oh wait, I dropped the ball there, and there. Didn't get gas in my car, didn't wash those paintbrushes, didn't set the alarm clock, things that make stress in my life. So part of self-love is to do those things that need to be done so that they don't build up and add up. And if I can do them consciously and intentionally, as if saying to inner me, I know you want to play, honey, and I want you to play without a guilty conscience, without something hanging over your head. So let's wash these paintbrushes now, and then when we're done, you get to play without this thing nagging you over here that it needs attending to. So that's a simple way for how I've caught myself practicing self-love lately.
Right. We oftentimes watch other podcasts. Aubrey Marcus is one of our favorites. Rebel Wisdom is another one. The Jungian Life. So we're giving plugs for all you guys out there.
Right.
Actually at this point, I would like to say something that's been on my mind. Is like Dina and I, in these trail talks, we're not psychiatrists. We're
Nope.
not rocket scientists.
Nope.
We're not physicists.
Nope.
We're not tech junkies.
Nope.
or tech magnets or anything like that. We're just two people, she and I.
Yeah.
We happen to be in relationship.
Thing one, thing two.
Yeah, thing one and thing two. We happen to be in relationship with each other, and we happen to be using a lot of our time to focus on what can we do in this world, what can we do for ourselves that is going to create the healthiest and most engaging life we can with each other. And so a lot of this is about discussing the things that we come across which seem to affect our lives and our ability to cohabitate with one another, to communicate with one another, and to effectively allow love to flow freely between the two of us and for those of us in our lives. Working on recognizing triggers, letting those indicate what traumas we have deeper in our lives, in our childhoods, allowing that trauma to be addressed and healed through self-love, through taking care of ourselves, through doing the work.
That's
and
the ultimate self-love.
Yeah.
Taking care of ourselves.
Yeah. And so, as we do these videos, we're not trying to say, we're experts. We don't have the
training
credentials, the academia, behind us to tout what we know or what we don't know. All we're doing is talking about what we're experiencing and the way we're experiencing it, because maybe we have something that might help others find a road that they need. So whatever we say here, we're no guru. Don't take us on word. We don't want you to start following us and saying, oh well, Dina and Robin said on Toilet Talk. No, that's not what this is about. So anyway, where was I going with all of that?
I don't know. We often chase rabbits, but you would not be very surprised how many rabbits run through a bathroom, but they do.
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh, you're gonna make people see that.
Anyway, so for me, self-care. Well, anyway, that's what it was. So Aubrey Marcus talked about folding clothes. At one point on one of his podcasts about self-love. It's like, well, gee, if I get the clothes folded and I get to wake up to a clean room and I don't feel anxiety about, how things are disorganized or unclean, I feel fresh. I feel like things are put away in a way which keep me at peace. And I'm notoriously bad at folding clothes. So,
oh yeah.
So Dina,
we have monuments to laundry in our homes. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, we both do.
Right. So, folding clothes can be an act of self-love because you're not leaving yourself with a mess to contend with or even look at later. And sometimes that's all self-love needs to be. Is at the same time, there are always things that are sitting there looming on our list of things to do. I mean, we can sit there and make a list, and day to day, it will never go away. Yeah, yeah. So what do we do when we start looking at our life as this big long list of things that need to be done and gotten to, and all these people that need things from us? Self-love is even more important. So being intentional about it and setting those lists aside for the sake of ourselves.
Yeah. Knowing when to say no. We can't say yes wholeheartedly unless we are saying no authentically. So to say no to something like my event yesterday, I had to say no to that because I was saying yes to me. And I didn't even have the explanation until I got it validated by the physician when he read my test. But somehow I knew that I needed to do this. And what you said about laundry sparked something. So
hopefully not a lingerie fire.
That's another story. I have a lingerie fire story. It's a good story. Maybe one day we'll tell that one. I've got many stories. When you were talking about folding clothes, when I do things like that, when I take care of the seemingly mundane, possibly irritating things in my life and I get them done, I get a sense of relief, a sense of release, a sense of freedom. It frees up the mental clutter. We also have emotional clutter, and I want to tie this in. Recently, I've been accused of hyper-focusing on the negative, on trauma. And I can see why this person would, well, these people, it's more than one, people often say this to me or about me, that I focus on the negative or the troubling things, or I reveal too much, or in this case I'm too focused on early childhood trauma and the importance that that plays in wreaking havoc with us, with relationships, with our culture, with the world at large. For me, the most important self-love I can do is to tend to what's going on within me. And these things show up as triggers. And often you'll hear someone saying something like, oh, triggers, they're bad things. Oh, you're triggered. Oh, you triggered me. And we act as though it's a problem when a trigger is an invitation to feel now as an adult what we couldn't bear to contend with then as a child. And it seems to me the most loving thing each of us can do when something arises that is uncomfortable, just like looking at the laundry or the clutter or the messes in our house. We don't have to do that work, the physical clutter work. We don't have to declutter our homes in order to live, but it makes it harder to function because we have to step over things and around things, and it's visibly displeasing. Same way with our emotional clutter. When stuff comes up, a trigger, if we contend with it, if we feel the feeling, if we resolve the issue, if we face the things that are hard to face within us, when we own our shadow one part at a time, when we do all of that internal work, it's a huge effort of self-love because we are decluttering ourselves from the inside. And sure, we can go through life never doing all of that, but it'll be harder and harder to get around the piles of internal clutter, like in a hoarder's home. Get to the point where we're having to navigate between narrow passages through our home. And we can do the same thing with our internal home. When we deny those issues within us, when we ignore them, they will grow and pile up and fester.
Yeah.
And then navigating through our own life is harder.
Right. So as you're sitting here talking about triggers and what they are and what they can do, I'm sitting here thinking about metaphors to try and give a better idea of what a trigger, how valuable a trigger really is.
Yep.
And most of you out there probably have cars. Most of those cars are probably newer than 1940. And most of those cars have these things called check engine lights. Okay, well, a trigger is no more than a check engine light for your emotional body. It's saying, hey, there's something wrong, check it out. And so when we get a check engine light in our cars, we could just take a little piece of electrical tape or duct tape or masking tape and put it over that light so that we don't see it anymore. That's what most of us do with our triggers. We ignore them, we push them aside, and we move on. How long would that serve your car if you have no oil in the engine? The engine will blow up in a matter of minutes or hours or potentially days, depending on how bad your oil leak is and what your check engine light is telling you. Your check engine light may be telling you that you don't have water, or you don't have oil, or there's a sensor that's bad. It might not cause your engine to blow up, but if you don't pay attention to it, you don't check it out, and you don't find out what it has to tell you, you'll never know, and eventually something will go wrong, and it will go wrong to the point where it causes a major issue for your car.
It affects functionality.
It affects functionality, and that's what a trigger is for us. A trigger is something's in our emotional body saying, hey, there's something not right here.
Something's out of alignment.
Something's out of alignment. The best thing to do, at least for me, and this is what I was telling, my mother and I were having a similar conversation yesterday about triggers and traumas and anxiety. When you have emotions, they're telling you something. So ask them what they're telling you. What is this anger trying to tell me? What is this trigger trying to tell me? Don't try to answer it. Allow it to answer itself. Because your subconscious body, your subconscious emotional body, once it decides that you're actually trying to engage it and it knows that you're going to listen, you'll get those inspirational ideas come up that say, oh, hey, this is what this is about, or this is part of what this is about. And then you get to start exploring what your internal landscape and what that emotional check engine light is actually trying to tell you.
That was brilliant. Now you see why I'm with this man, why I love this man so much, because this is the kind of stuff he comes up with. I love taking an abstract, complicated thing and having it put into an analogy that actually helps me grok it. And that was really well done. I'm impressed. I'm thinking along those lines, building on that metaphor, that
Wait. Hold on to that thought. Oh, damn, I don't have the can anymore. I was going to say Red Bull gives you emotional or intellectual wings, but, anyway. Sorry. Anyway, go ahead.
God, the ego is often maligned and demonized in spiritual circles. And I've always taken issue with that, because we need an ego for me to be me, for Robin to be Robin, for each of you to be who you are, rather than this great nebulous blob of oneness from whence we came and to which we shall return, and however that works.
If that's what you believe in.
Right. But we need, in order to be an individual in a human form, having this individuated, autonomous experience, we need an ego. We need a sense of separation from everything else. It's a persistent illusion, this sense of separation. And then the ego gets maligned. You hear it all the time. Oh, that's just your ego. Oh, your ego is running the show, etc. And the idea is destroy the ego, control the ego. I like to think of the ego as the internal 2-year-old of the family that comprises me. All the different parts. Shadow, ego, inner child, all the different parts. And the ego is like a 2-year-old. I don't know how many of you have had children, but when you had a 2-year-old, no matter how annoying they can and often are, you probably never thought about killing them, right? But it's also a really good thing to not let the 2-year-old, whether it's literal or egoic, drive the family car. So in Robin's car analogy.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially with those check engine lights that they won't recognize.
Yeah. You want, the 2-year-old ego child might say, hey, there's a shiny light right there up by the steering wheel. And as the adult in the car, it makes sense to not duct tape the mouth of the 2-year-old and then put the duct tape on the dashboard, but to look and say, oh, something's out of alignment here. But then we're not going to let the 2-year-old get in the driver's seat and I'm gonna steer this thing. I'm gonna control this thing. The important thing is to love the ego, thank it, listen to it, and then put it in the back seat, in the car seat, and make sure it's strapped in, while we, the adult, or capital S self, takes care of the problem by feeling the feeling, by addressing the trigger, and as Robin said, asking it the question of, what do you want to tell me? What do I need to know here? What is missing out of my information? Sometimes literally just sitting with the feeling, feeling it as a sensation in the body, rather than analyzing it, is what we need. And again, don't answer the question, because we don't want to come up with an answer from the same limited mind that came up with the conclusion that's underneath the trigger, if that makes sense.
The intellect will always come up with a story to tell you if you allow your mind and your ego to answer the questions. And while one could probably debate whether or not it's the ego, the intellect that controls the process or not, what I've found is that when I am open to whatever answers come up, after asking the question, but intentionally not answering it, just asking the question and going about the rest of my day, the rest of my life until something appears, is that it seems to be much more
natural, effective,
inspirational.
Yeah.
It seems to show up as an epiphany, which
Right.
is attached to my emotional body, rather than a story, which is something that I can make up out of thin air on a moment's notice, with my imagination. There's nothing wrong with the imagination. The imagination allows us to to conceptualize things beyond our experience. So, it may be a combination of a lot of things working together inside our consciousness, and I can't speak to what that actual process looks like. Only how it seems to respond when I engage in a way which is born out of curiosity rather than out of anxiety. And I guess that's another thing I'd like to bring up when we talk about the ego and this whole idea of triggers and the metaphor of the check engine light is, if you're driving a car, getting back to the check engine light analogy, if you're driving a car and you see the check engine light come on, most of the time what we're going to do is going, crap, my car's having an issue. What am I going to do? I don't have the money for this. I don't have the time to deal with this. I need this car functional right now. If we go to anxiety, we can create a lot of stress in our lives based upon this warning sign. It's like, crap, I'm broken. I'm done. I'm messed up. I might as well die. I might as well get rid of my car. I might as well just go and move on and get another car in the next lifetime. Whatever. We can also take a look at it as this thing of, oh, I really love this car. This car has gotten me a lot of places. I'm 50. My car is 51 years old now. You can see all of my car here, and it's gotten me where I am so far. And I actually would like to take this car on a little bit more of a road trip, maybe around the United States, maybe around the world, and paying attention to this check engine light right now gives me the ability to ensure that my car or my body, my emotional body, is healthy and up for the challenge of continuing to take on the next 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, 60 years of this journey that I'm on inside this body, inside this emotional and intellectual and spiritual and physical body. So, when we spend all this money and all this time on these vehicles that we go through life in, to not do the regular maintenance, to not pay attention to issues as they come up, is basically saying, well, we're willing to throw this away and we're willing to ignore it for the sake of continuing to move on to the next seemingly best thing and wasting what we've already put into what we already have.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I mean, if that makes sense in an abstract way.
I like this analogy. It works well for me. And it reminds me of something that John Lennon once said. He was talking about life and afterlife. I believe he was actually speaking to someone who was trying to convince him there's no such thing as reincarnation, there's just the one chance to get it right, and then consequences eternally. And John apparently is said to have said, we don't really die, we just change cars. And
Did he really say that?
He did.
I see.
He did.
Nice.
You can look it up. You can Google that. Yeah. I like that because we tend to value cars, and there are so many spiritual traditions that look at the physical body and say, oh, it's nothing, it's just flesh, it's just a shell. And while I am not exclusively my body, I've come to the place where I very much am also my body. I am here on purpose, in human form, in flesh. There's nothing here to denigrate. The material is as precious as is the ethereal, spiritual and sexual. All of the things comprise who we are, and none of them are to be denigrated or sidelined or put above each other. It's the opportunity to be a human being, to go through the experiences that we're going through, including those painful ones in early childhood that cause the trauma, the issues that then become triggered up. All of this is part of what we're doing here. There's no accidents. There's not, oh, I'll get through all of these issues, all these triggers, and then I'll arrive. In my experience, in my reality, contending with triggers, doing my emotional work is my spiritual practice, because I believe I came here in this lifetime to be the most me I can be. And the world needs me to be that. The world needs Robin to be the most Robin can be. And each of you listening right now, you're here on purpose. You're here for a purpose. You're here for a reason. This isn't a nihilistic, accidental experience. And you're the only one who can have the connection with the universe that tells you, that informs you who you are and why you're here and what you came to do. That's your journey. That's your exploration. And nobody, not me, not a therapist, not your parents, nobody can tell you who you are and what you came to experience, to learn, to do as a human being. And a big part of that for balance is self-love, is dealing with the things that hurt within. And there are lots of ways to do it. Robin and I have been trained in a lot of different modalities together and individually, and we are in the process of opening ourselves up to working with others in a way that might benefit you. You don't have to sit on a toilet. I won't be sitting on a toilet. Robin won't be sitting on a toilet.
But if you have a toilet and you need to sit on a toilet, I would recommend sitting on a toilet.
Yeah, sitting on a toilet from time to time is an act of self-love. Absolutely, yeah. We haven't yet hung out the shingle or gotten the website or said we're ready for clients, but we will need a few guinea pigs to work on, to hone our skills and refresh our trainings and all of that. But what you see here is what we're offering. We're just two people who are dedicated to doing our own work and to inspiring other people, creating a place, a space, and inspiring people in that space to be able to discover who you really are and to go and be, and whatever flows out of that, whatever doing flows out of your beingness, do that.
Yeah, I'm curious. So, like, I'm sure that there are a bunch of you out there. I mean, for those of you who are watching, are like, I don't have a purpose here on Earth. We're not all here for a purpose. Well, I would challenge that. What if you are? And what, you don't have to believe it. That's okay. I'm not sure I believe it all the time for myself. In fact, I go back and forth on that. And if you don't believe you have a purpose, then there's only room for movement up in that. I mean, maybe you find something different. Anyway, it's just a personal challenge. If you don't think you have a purpose, might not be a bad idea to engage and say, well, what if?
Yeah. What ifing is my second favorite indoor sport.
Yeah. We're not going to go into the first one. So, actually, well, what more do you have to say on the topic of triggers and things at the moment based on where we've been? Because I've actually got something else I was thinking about bringing up.
Okay, so. I'll bring that up. You bring that up, and then we probably need to wrap up. We're contending with a mini heat wave here. You need to get out for it.
Well, I told you we should get out for the run before we did this, but you didn't listen.
He did tell me that, but this was kind of wanting to be expressed. My thoughts on triggers in general. Rather than seeing a trigger as a problem, next time you're triggered, play the what if game. So what if there's something here for me to feel and thus heal, something to face within me and to embrace about me. My perspective on triggers is that the only problem we really have is that we're out of alignment with our own truth, the truth of who we really are and all that. And when we're young and things happen to us we can't contend with, we form false conclusions or lies about ourselves. Oh, I must be bad. Oh, I must not deserve love. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I don't matter. Whatever it is that a young, incomplete mind forms due to painful things that we experience as children. And then that, of course, gets repressed into the subconscious, and that becomes our blueprint, our imprint, our programming. So there's a part of us that loves us so much, and life itself loves us so much, that it will orchestrate situations over and over that replicate that earlier experience for the purpose of being triggered. So when something happens, when someone says or does something that makes us react, it's because our inner child, who's sort of frozen in time in the subconscious, is re-feeling that original pain and comes up to the surface with the fury of all of that festering pain, which is why when we react, it often feels like we're making a mountain out of a molehill. We are overreacting. But don't do that to yourself. Don't tell yourself that you're overreacting or chastise yourself or someone else for being triggered. If instead we can become very aware, I'm triggered. Here's the opportunity to look at something that's been festering within me and lovingly address it and heal it and find that false conclusion, that lie that I'm believing about myself, and replace it with truth by asking the question to life itself, to whatever is your source of truth, and say, is it true that I don't matter? And then wait for the response from whatever is your source of truth. And then you have a new experience that actually replaces that original experience. We can't mentally heal that. You can't just say affirmations and try to convince yourself mentally that this emotional pain didn't happen or that the lie you believed isn't there. We have to have an experience that replaces the original experience. So that asking the question, is it true that I don't matter, that I'm not loved, that I'm not good enough, whatever was the false conclusion. And then when you receive that, it's really astonishing how that simple thing has the power to unhook the charge, to heal the festering part, and then you won't be triggered on that specific thing again. But we have so many things that we experienced that it's not, the point is not to arrive somewhere to get past all of our triggers. The point is to dedicate our lives to taking emotional responsibility for ourselves, one trigger at a time. And eventually it gets to where we don't see the trigger as an awful thing, but we welcome it as an opportunity to do yet more healing, to become yet more ourselves. Those are my thoughts on triggers. Did that align with what you were thinking, or did I go way off?
So, I mean, I guess my thought is that one of the reasons why I try to go to a metaphor or an analogy is that there are a lot of people out there that can't always grasp spiritual, emotional, and intellectual jargon in a way um, which is going to indicate how to go about doing things with with our emotions, with our triggers, with our traumas. And so I want to try to put it into a context which is a little bit easier to grasp when thinking about our emotional bodies, our emotional reactions, our emotional um, just our emotions in general. And unlike new cars that have a computer that will tell you exactly what is wrong with your car when a check engine light or an oil light or a computer indicator comes up, and it'll tell you exactly what's wrong with it. Our check engine lights tell us that something's wrong, but it doesn't give us any specifics. It's a very general warning light, similar to what happened in early automotive technology. One light fits all. So, like Dina was saying, you know, we have lots of triggers, but just because we're triggered doesn't mean that we're triggered over the same thing over and over and over again. We can be sometimes, or they can be related. So when you're triggered with something, when you have an emotional reaction, the call is to do the exploration. The call is to ask the questions. The call isn't to assume that you've already dealt with it, because if you're getting triggered by it still, chances are you still have work to do.
Lift the hood, look around.
Yeah, check the oil, check the water. The check engine light is on, it's telling you something's wrong. So yeah, check under the hood, investigate. And whether it's anxiety or grief or sadness or anger or fear or confusion or What are some other really good emotions that tend to be secondary emotions? Jealousy,
Yeah,
apathy, when you're
apathy,
apathetic.
or dissociating and feeling numb, and often numbness
Right.
is a reaction, a compensation
Is a trigger.
to It's a denial of and an unwillingness to look at what's going on. The whole stiff upper lip from our British ancestors, that notion of, oh, we'll just carry on, we'll just deny, repress, shove it down, carry on, and
cover that check engine light with a piece of tape.
Right. Yeah. Another analogy I used to like is, imagine you're standing waist deep in a swimming pool,
right,
and you've got a dozen beach balls, and your job is to shove all of them under the water and hold them down, and it's impossible.
But that's anxiety.
That's anxiety. Yeah. To me, depression and anxiety are not necessarily emotions. To me, depression is the numbing out of all emotions and being flat. And of course, we can feel a sense of emptiness when we do that. Anxiety is when all of the emotions gang up on us at once. So to me, those are states of being rather than emotions themselves. And then joy, for me, is not happiness. Happiness comes and goes, it's fleeting. All of the emotions pass like clouds in the sky. To me, joy is the sky. Joy is the state in which I allow each and every emotion to show up and go through, to just be there until it's gone. Joy allows me to feel every feeling that comes. When I authentically feel grief, embrace it without resisting it, I let it be fully present, there is a sense of joy, a sense of well-being in not resisting, but embracing whatever's authentically there. And I no longer insist on happiness exclusively. Happiness shows up, and when it's there, oh yeah, I'm in it. But I'm not trying to cling to happiness, and I don't like when it's mandated. It's just one of the feelings that comes and goes. And any emotion authentically felt, including fear. What I've discovered is when I sort of say, all right, fear, come and get me, rather than resisting it, I discovered that the dragon that I'm scared of is actually just this little dust bunny that's been in the closet, and it doesn't even have fangs.
So, yeah, I actually want to go back and touch on joy really quick, and put it to our metaphor. So, if joy, as Dean is describing it, is it can be a pretty difficult concept. It's like, okay, well, joy's not happiness? What? What are you trying to tell me here? So think of happiness as being able to drive your car wherever you want, as fast as you want to go. It's just pure excitement, and you're alive, and you're ecstatic, and you're happy, and there's nothing you have to worry about, right? No check engine lights, your gas tank is full, it's a decent day, there's no real problems, and you just get to go and explore. That's happiness. Okay. Joy is when you're at the gas pump and you're paying $6 a gallon and begrudgingly filling up your tank, and then driving away from the pump going like, well, crap, that was a lot of money, but I get to do what I want to do. That's joy. It's not happiness. It's not being out on the road. It's acknowledging that you had to do something that would get you to the point where you could go and do something that you're happy to do.
Joy is the embracing of reality, then, is what I hear you saying. Joy is actually facing and saying, this is what is.
This is all part of what is.
Joy is non-resistance. Joy is allowance and acceptance of the actual experience that life is offering.
And joy is perfectly happy running in tandem with anger or depression or fear. Joy can be present in all of those places because it's an acceptance of joy what is, not a resistance to it. And actually, this gets into the topic that I wanted to go into.
Oh, was that all a warm-up?
That was all a warm-up.
We're going to be here forever. I'm going to get ring around the buns again.
Well, do we want to stop this video here and go on to part 2 when we get back?
So let's get a teaser. What is part 2?
Well, so you know how when your car starts making a funny noise, some people will actually pay attention. Some people will pay attention to that check engine light and investigate. There are others of us.
Uh-oh.
Well, if I just turn up the music a little bit louder, I won't hear that noise. If I just put that piece of duct tape over the check engine light, I won't hear that noise.
Denial.
If I assume, oh, that check engine's light's just telling me that I'm a quart low on oil, I can go another 700 miles before I have to actually stop and put oil in it.
Right.
That's a dangerous assumption, isn't it? Then I'll be fine. So what happens when we ignore things? What does that look like? What does distraction look like?
And procrastination.
But anyway, so there's another part to the discussion that came up as Dina and I were commenting on some things that we notice around Dallas, Oregon. Well, just in general. And last night we happened to be talking about a specific subject of noise, and so that's kind of where I want to go into next, is what distracts us from doing the work. What do you think? Shall we go into it now, or shall we hit it after we get back from our run?
I would like to hit it after. I'm aware that it's getting warmer outside, and my body's getting hungry. My body's talking again.
Ooh.
It's saying it would like to get off the toilet. It would like to get shoes on and go for a run and come back and eat.
So is your butt being triggered by the toilet seat?
I'm developing ring around the buns, and I'm not going to show you. No. I'm not going to show you.
She's not going to show you. Don't be your hopes up. Anyway, so I guess we're going to call it quits or wrap up for now.
We're going to wrap up for now.
And
that's a wipe.
Wow. She just went there. She just went there. So that's gonna be our closing from now on. That's a wipe. Oh wow. Leave it to thespians to come up with something like that, you know. Yes. Anyway, so yeah, join us for a follow-up on this. Should be interesting. You can learn all about the check engine lights and how to ignore them that you never knew were possible in life.
And I was just going to say, I don't know why it occurred to me, but I want to let y'all know my pronoun. My preferred pronoun is we. So there.
On that note, we are wrapping it up. We are wiping it up, and we will get back to you shortly. I hope you have a great afternoon. That's all for now.
Bye-bye.